Hello, everyone. I'm Gemma Star, and welcome to another episode of Man Speak. Man Speak is the offshoot to a Heart Warrior series, and that is a series where I invite men to come on and speak man to man, articulating their journey into the heart. Now, some of those men have got wisdom, knowledge, experience, embodiment in a great range of topics and subjects, and they come back onto Man Speak to talk about a topic of their choice, something they're passionate about, something close to their heart, and they can now share with us. So today's guest is our number 7 Heart Warrior. He's back, and his name is Robert Althuis. Now, Robert is an author, and he is a executive coach and mentor. And his chosen topic for today is the alchemical journey of reclamation, rebirth, and resurrection. So very relevant to these times that we're going through. And I'm really interested to see how Robert can bring that to what we're going through today, on our individual journeys, what's going on the world stage, and wherever he wants to take it, really. So enjoy. Robert Althuis, welcome back, and lovely to have you on Man Speak. How are you?
Thank you, Gemma. It's such a pleasure to be back. It was so much fun to do the first one, and I've seen kind of the various men and some of the great conversations. I've been following it, and so such a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. And I love this subject, one of my absolute favorites, the alchemical journey, because we can relate it to our own life. We can relate it to what's going on in the external. How would you describe it in a nutshell, the alchemical journey?
Yeah, and I mentioned, right, I'm kind of editing my second book, and in my second book, I go a lot into actually explaining what words mean. Because I feel in a lot of the teachings that we're picking up, and a lot of people are teaching stuff and they don't actually really know what a word, what the etymology of the word is, right? So alchemical means transformational, right? And so when we're talking about an alchemical journey, we're talking about a transformational journey. So something is transforming itself. Now, transformation is different than just change. Change is just like I'm going from light red to dark red, that's a change. A transformation is going from red to blue, right? We are totally transforming something. And so within alchemy, we are entirely transforming something. And in the the Gnostic traditions and Hermeticism, we're talking about going from lead to gold. Now, lead and gold was symbolic, right? That wasn't like actually a true, people took that very literally, like we're going to go turn lead into gold. And then we have like the sequence, the chemistry sequence to abundance. And now we have worldly power. That's not what this lead and gold was all about. And we can talk a little bit later about what the lead and gold actually referred to, because almost everything in the esoteric wisdom traditions, including all major religions, it's all symbolic. There's not a word that's literal in the Bible, the Quran, the Torah. None of it is literal, right? And so we have to actually kind of look into, well, what's really within that word, within that label, within that language. Anyway, so alchemical journey, transformational journey. And then we talked about reclamation, rebirth, and resurrection. 3 kind of big words that are beautiful, and we can kind of delve into it. But did I kind of answer that first question for you?
Oh, beautifully. Thank you, Robert. So where would you like to start with this journey?
Well, I can go into and just kind of lead into what I mean by that title, right? And then we'll just kind of see where it takes us. So, and I say this in the premise that, there is, and you see it on your show, right? Every man that's on your show has a certain amount of the medicine to bring into this fold. And we are all talking and maybe pointing at the same thing, but maybe we're still doing it in a different way. And we have different medicine. And it's not that one person's medicine is better than another. Like we kind of need all of it. I can only speak of my medicine, kind of what I know, what's coming through me, right? It's coming through me. It's not Robert talking. It's not like Robert is so fucking great. It's like Robert is opening up his portals enough that it's allowing to come through me, and it's something that I can share here, right? And all my experiences in my life led to this understanding that I needed to have so I could bring this medicine in the world, because everything that happens to us is just experiences, right? And we turn it into medicine that we can then share. It becomes lived experiences. So we're not teaching from a book, we're teaching from a lived experience. Now, one of the things that before I go into this is that, you know, especially in the last 2 years, we've been really, and you posted about that revelation that that little post I did. And so, you know, we live in an inverted world. And there's been great men on your show that are really deep into that, and they have fantastic information, and it's beautiful and it's helpful. And we need people to really like dig into that. But we get to a point where you can just see it's inverted, and you can at some point say, okay, I can see that, right? So now I got to elevate. I got to rise above it. Now we're in reclamation. Because within the process of reclamation, which is the process of claiming back, which is reclaiming, what are we reclaiming? We're reclaiming our divinity, right? That's the process. That's the road we're setting on. We're in the chemical process of turning lead into gold. Lead being the dead person that is cut off from divinity, to the gold person, which is back reunited with divinity. Now, if you want to call divinity God, creator, monad, the most high, the absolute universal mind, infinite intelligence, it's a label. Pick whatever label you love most. Whichever label speaks to you, perfect, beautiful. I'm not here to talk about labels. I'm pointing at something that cannot be captured by a label. It's beyond any label. It's the absolute. It's the supreme. It's like the greatest of all. And whatever you want to call that, you might call that, right? That's a personal preference of whatever kind, whatever language too. You know, it depends on language. So in the process of reclamation, sorry, I got to click something away here. In the process of reclamation, we're really talking about claiming back. And this is where we first get presented with this revelation of all this inverted stuff, and how we are actually interwoven, you know, we're like, you know, completely intertwined, because we're so entangled in this matrix. We were born into it, you know, it's kind of hardwired into us. And so we have to go through this process of untangling, disentangling, and kind of undoing all these programs that turn out to be not true. And then we have to kind of find truth. So truth seeking is beautiful, and it's an ongoing process. But at some point, there's kind of a next station we can evolve into. And I think this is kind of the crucial junction where we're at, because what I'm finding a lot, quite a bit, I see this a lot among the truthers. The truthers are not the most loving people in the world. They're not the most forgiving people in the world. And so, you know, we are not going to rise above anything if we're not going to forgive anybody. If we're not going to open the doors for everybody to come with us. If we don't, you know, build that bridge and then make it available to everybody, no matter how they showed up 1 or 2 years ago, right? And we're just before Thanksgiving, we're just before Christmas. How many families have been ripped apart over the last 2 years? Now, who's going to go over the bridge first? Who's going to go back and reach a hand out and say, you know, I know a lot of things have been said and a lot of things happened, but we got to mend these broken, these schisms, right? These divides. Now, if you want to rise to that level, you have to be the one in forgiveness. First of yourself, but second of all, you got to open it up to everybody else. Because if you want to lead in that, right, you have to be that heart that opens first. And you have to be that one that goes back and say, yeah, I know you vilified me because I didn't want to take the vaccine or this or that. But I still love you. I understand you just made the best decision you could, even though you said hateful things at the time, or maybe you ostracized me, or maybe you ridiculed me, or whatever. It's okay. You know, let's see in all the other ways that we still have a lot of commonality, and let's mend these bridges. I'm seeing, if I'm honest, I'm seeing too little of that. I'm seeing too few people. And so if you're still ridiculing them and calling them sheeple and all these things, and you're obsessed with them all going to jail and being hung for whatever they've done, that's not a place of forgiveness. I'm not saying justice shouldn't be done. I'm not saying those people that are accountable for things that they should be held accountable. I'm not saying that we shouldn't hold people accountable. But we have to first recognize the divinity within them as well. And that's not a very easy thing to do when we still want to judge. And we still want to place judgment and opinion on everything. And so this is the rebirth process. We have to be born again. Born again meaning like we are literally leaving all these entanglements behind. When you are reborn, born again, literally born again, all the entanglements go. We're going back to a blank canvas. We're going back to being entirely clean. We cannot hold on to all these grudges and grievances. We cannot hold on to any of these things because that is not the octave of consciousness that's going to build this new world. And a lot of people, well, what about Putin? Yeah, you got to love Putin too. Because for all you know, at some level, he serves his purpose here. And we're only seeing 1% of reality. 99% of us, it's in the metaphysical. There's billions of variables at play at any given time. And, this man is clearly very disconnected from his divinity. That's a very difficult incarnation. And karmic debts are settled by the universe in far more intelligent ways than you or me as an individual can ever exercise. So we're just going to have to trust that his karmic debts will be settled by a higher authority. We're not here to settle those debts. Now, again, I'm not justifying what he's doing. I'm not, we could say the same about Zelensky and Biden. We could get all kinds of political figures, because they're all, I can't name one of them right now that comes to mind that's peachy clean. Let me put it that way. So, we can just project this on anything, right? But the rebirth process is really us rising above all of this and really starting to see the world through the lens of love and compassion. And even those that are so locked in their small self and are doing atrocious, unthinkable things, we see beyond that. And we say, there's still a spark of divinity within that person, right? It's just not accessible to that person right now. And so they're driven by this small self that is living in fear and has had probably horrendous programming from a lifelong abuse of living in a system that is not bringing the most beautiful thing in humanity out, right? So this is the rebirth process. Now, resurrection, which is really, it comes from the Latin, again is again, and surgere is rise. So resurrection, we're really talking about, this completion of this process where we're left all of the old behind, and we are, for all intents and purposes, born anew, truly born anew. We're just in a completely different octave of consciousness. And even though our physical representation is kind of looks the same, there's virtually nothing the same. Because everything inside has been alchemized, has been truly transformed. And we're now operating from this higher octave where really love and compassion is the core form of intelligence that's guiding us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not using our mind, that we're not doing smart things, that we're not still building businesses or accumulating, abundance in the material world. I mean, all those things are not going to stop, but we will be doing in a fundamentally different way. And just our presence, just our being, right, is actually what changes things. It's not so much our doing at this stage, because now we're really talking about sympathetic resonance. We're talking about frequency and vibration at such a level where really we become magnetic. And, we know when we meet people like this, because they have presence, they have charisma, and you feel it. And it can be a burning feeling to be in presence of a person like this, because it's a lot of energy. And it's basically like, you are fully exposed at that point. And I truly believe that, many of us are rising to that. Many of us are kind of, stepping into that space. And if you want to call that 5D or whatever, that's fine. I think it's just a purification process. And I like to, I am writing this new book, and it's coming out next year. And I really, it's a teaching framework around all of this. But what it really comes down to is that, we're both the sculptor and the sculpture. And we're here to be a spiritual poet. And we're here to be spiritual art. And how beautiful can you make your art? That's really the game here on planet Earth, right? Like, how beautiful can we make this expression into all creation? And every dream that you have, every desire that you have, a genuine desire from the heart, is a seed that's placed within you, and you have the gifts, the talents, and the superpowers to make it happen. Because this universe is not cruel. It wouldn't have been placed there, right, unless you had the abilities to rise into that and bring that into fruition. And everybody's a unique puzzle piece. It's a mosaic of humanity. Everybody's here to do themselves. And this is the other thing that we're finding out, that we can no longer box people in little boxes. We just have to give everybody full creative license to live at the highest octave that's available to them in terms of expressing their spiritual art into all of creation. So that's a long story, but anyway.
Oh, so good, Robert. I'm just sort of relating it to my own journey, and very briefly, because you'll probably be able to put better words around it. But, I woke it to what I call the mind truth, the external truth of the world, the illusion, the inversion. But that got to a point where it actually caused a lot of chaos and war within me. So then I cut off completely, and I went into what I call my heart awakening. I did a lot of meditation. I really connected to the divine, and I really opened up. And that's when my poetry started coming through. And then in February 2020, when, all this stuff started happening in the world, I got back into the mental sort of truther scene, but I brought with it the awareness that I had now from my heart awakening, which I feel was my integration. And so then I could ride out these 3 years of the, seeing the external chaos, but still have peace within me. Is that a human experience of what you were saying into words?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us have been going through that very same process, maybe not on the exact timeline that you're describing. But there is, this revelation that happens when you first kind of, let's say, awaken and you start actually seeing. And then, there's this natural curiosity to kind of start digging down all these rabbit holes, right? Well, if all this shit I've believed my whole life is not true, then what is true? And, you want to know. And you're going all down these rabbit holes, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's it's a natural thing that you want to figure out and get your bearings on. Like, well, if all this stuff is not true, then what is, right? These rabbit holes are never ending, and I know from my own journey, having been a participant in some of that stuff and pretty dark stuff, and then having worked with clients, being exposed to even more dark stuff. To me, I think the main thing where you need to arrive at the point is not to know all the truth about everything, but you have to discover the truth that every piece of darkness in this world, in some way, some form, some fashion, is within you. And you have to transmute that part in you, because you cannot transmute it in the world. You're not invited to the Bilderberg group or the WEF. You're not invited to these pedophile parties or whatever there might be, you know. I mean, like, I don't even want to like get too far into that, but like, you know, you're not here to change that. You're here to change the darkness in you. And I guarantee you that if you would be raised or you know, brought up, or your life would have traversed within those dark areas, you might have been capable of things that you now judge. And, you know, maybe in a previous life, you've done some of these things. All right. And so if you think about this being an eternal game, and, you know, you've probably lived a couple hundred, maybe thousands of lives, you know, just look and clean up your own little front step, right? And clean up that little piece within you, the remnants within you. And so when you see those truth, and yeah, maybe the scale's different, but where are you still lying in your life? Where are you still not talking the truth? Because, you know, I always find it funny that we talk about these politicians that are corrupt, and then these same people 5 minutes later are talking about how they bamboozle stuff on their own tax return. But you're doing it on a smaller scale. You're doing the same thing, right? They're justifying it just like you're justifying it in some way. You're just rationalizing. That's all in the mind. It's not the heart. It's not pure, right? And so, and there's many levels of this. So every time you see something that you readily judge upon, you know, there's now this disaster with this crypto, this FTX, there's another thing that blew up. And I can promise you there's 16 layers deep that you're not seeing into this stuff, right? Because this is big money and big stuff and big players are involved. So you don't even know what's all behind it. But you can look at it, and this guy went from the golden boy, you know, to now he's the villain. And you can look at that and say, is that really true? What's in that, you know? What makes us want to, you know, idolize him and then, you know, yank him off his horse and then cheer when he falls from grace? What's within us that kind of, in a way, enjoys that? Why do we enjoy seeing people fall off their horse? Why do I idolize them when they reach the top, and then we kind of want, you know, we salivate, you know, when they all fall down? Why do we do that? Where else do I do this in my life? Do I do this with my family, with my friends? Am I sabotaging maybe myself somewhere as well? Right? So I think everything we see in the outside world, the entire truth seeking in the outside world, is a beautiful exercise, but eventually you're going to have to bring it back home and just clean up your own stuff, right? Really, really look into your own darkness.
Yeah, Robert, are we like the focal point of the hologram, so that, you know, everything that's happening in our internal universe is being projected out into our reality in our external?
Of course.
So as we change whatever it is that's bringing chaos or lack of peace within ourselves, that little piece changes in the external world, and we have peace with that too.
Yeah, yeah. There's many teachings that will tell you that you're the only one in the universe. There is nothing else but you.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah,
right?
every so often I have to remind myself of that, it's like, wow.
And then if you truly understand the concept of oneness, then you know this to be true. Because you and me, sitting here right now, we're the same. Just looking at reality through a different lens. One is called Gemma Star, with her life in Australia, growing up with that family and those circumstances and those husbands and those lovers and those whatever, whatever movie was built around Gemma, right? Which is just one vantage point through which to experience reality. And then, I just experienced, a Dutch boy, growing up, leaving his country, traveling, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, being in a mill, 6'5" body, whatever, this is just my vantage point. But ultimately, it's all the same.
Sorry.
And if you can see that, you get really, really close to making it easy to get to forgiveness. Because if you could truly, truly see the truth in that, then everybody else is you in some aspect. It's an aspect of you. Well, you might not like all aspects of yourself, but even if you take just this little persona, do you like every aspect of this persona? I don't know many people that do. We all have aspects of ourselves we're not crazy about. And so when you look at the rest of the world, we're just seeing that same fractal-based perspective on a larger fractal.
And the illusion is, isn't it, that with the inversion, that they've kept us focused on the external, changing the external. If we earn so much money, you'll be able to have a happier life. You'll be able to have a bigger house, 2 cars, better holidays. Whereas when we change the internal, that's when the real change happens, and we just become peace with whatever we have, which creates a more fulfilling life and a more expansive abundance. And then we actually start bringing in the things that we were seeking to create with external focus.
And everything has been, the psyops goes back thousands of years, and it's all around fear. And fear is really the negative belief absent any concrete evidence. Now, the opposite of fear is actually not love. It's faith. A positive belief absent any concrete evidence. Those are actually the two sides of the coin. Now, love, pure love, universal love, not second chakra love, like I love you today, but tomorrow I don't love you anymore. Not that kind, but the sacred heart, right? The high heart. This is where your hymus gland is. That's your high heart. Your Christ consciousness is right there. That's where your high love is. That has no polarity, because it's actually the fabric of all the reality. That's actually who you are. That's actually what everything is. And so there's no polarity on that level of love. Now, the sacral love that we know, which is also, I call it transactional love, right? We're trading something and we call that love. So I get a beautiful woman and she's really nice and kind and she looks pretty and all that stuff. And, you get a man that provides and whatever. And so we're exchanging stuff, right? And we feel great about it until we don't. until, she's no longer, the model you like, or, now she's talking back in a way you don't like, or whatever, or she changed, or you changed, or he doesn't bring as much money anymore, or, that guy brings more money, or whatever, right? It's just transactional. But the opposite of that, and that we see that love in everywhere, not just romantic. I mean, that's what we see. That's how most people understand love in this world. Now, the opposite of that is actually indifference. And indifference we see everywhere in this world, because we're just indifferent. Most of Western society is just indifferent. We're just indifferent to 1 billion people starving. We're indifferent to so many people being disenfranchised. We're indifferent to the ill health all the unhealthy products and environmental disasters cause. We're indifferent to it. In fact, we idolize the CEOs that run these companies, the politicians that keep it in place. We idolize these people because we're indifferent. We say we care, but we don't really. And that's because it's at the level of transactional love. So the opposite of that one is that love is indifference. Now, the love that's right here, in the depictions of Jesus, you have the Sacred Heart. That's what it depicts. It's crystalline, actually. If you can see colors and energy, there's a crystalline upper part of your chakra here. And that's basically love. But love is not just an emotion, it's an intelligence. It's the highest vibrational intelligence in our universe. Everything that's governed by love, right? That's saturated by love, that's created from love, that's marinated in love, that is doused in love. It blooms, flowers, heals, grows, expands, and beautifies. There is nothing more powerful in this world than that love.
I've got a book, it's called 528, and it talks about love being the same frequency as divine creation. So as you said, when we sit in this embodiment of love with this frequency in our heart and it's palpable, we can feel the expansion. 100%. That is the energy of divine creation. As you so beautifully put it at the beginning, it's like us creating our divine masterpiece, or a work of sculpture on planet Earth. And I can really resonate with that, through when I'm in creation mode. It's definitely an energy coming from the heart as opposed to the mind.
100%.
Do it in poetry, others might do it through dance or movement or building, architecture.
Doesn't matter. And it's actually emerging right at the heart level. It's a merging of the masculine and the feminine. And it's very beautiful in the flower of life, the first two circles merging, right? You create what's called the Vesica Piscis. Now that's the overlap, and the circumference of each circle goes through the center part, right? So the masculine circle, which is consciousness, actually is first, and then it's merged with the feminine circle, and you get the Vesica Piscis. That's also called the womb of creation, or the vagina of creation. And if you literally look at a woman's vagina, it looks like the Vesica Piscis. Like she is the creatrix. And consciousness, which is represented by the masculine, is love, pure love. Pure consciousness is pure love. Now, what's the sacred fuel source of a woman? Because she's just a representation here on earth of the feminine. What happens when you infuse a woman with love? She fucking lights up like a Christmas tree. She starts to create. She wants to birth children. She is insatiable in bed. She wants to just like explode with life. Right? And so consciousness penetrating with love right? That which is feminine, which is creation, which is nature, which is like everything that's created, it just comes to life. It just explodes, it expands, it blooms, it heals, it just like it wants to, it beautifies. And you can take like, and of course men need love too. I'm not saying it's not like that, but like you can take the most barren woman that is love deprived, that is just like, and if you infuse her with love, she literally becomes beautiful. She comes to life. And what do we do when men can't handle her chaos? We do male manipulation, which is we turn our back, we walk away. When all she needs is actually the opposite. She needs you to approach her, and then she needs more fuel. Now, she is just a representation of nature, of a business, of anything you want to create in life. She's just a representation of that, right? And of course, within us, we each have a masculine and a feminine component as well. So it's not like, you know, only men could do this. No, of course, women can create just as beautifully. When a woman puts her love into something, fuck, it comes alive, big time. Right? Now, when that love dies within her, it's where she becomes bitter. Now she becomes destructive. And in Hinduism, right, we have the feminine energy. She can create life and destruct life, right? In Hindu religion, that's the embodiment of a woman. While a woman infused with love will create, nature, Mother Earth infused with love will create and blossom and groom, right? And if she is exploited, extracted, and not, you know, revered, she will go barren. Well, look at Mother Earth. Look at what we've been doing. It's another feminine. Now, I love to sail. Boats are female. You know, a boat needs to be loved too. A business needs to be loved. Employees need to be loved. You know, family members, friendships. Everything is, anything of creation needs love to flourish.
Yeah, relationships are creation. So
of course, 100%.
With love they flourish, yeah. Any relationship, whether it's with Mother Earth or with a person or with, you know, family, business, as you said, that really is the expansive force, isn't it?
Yeah, or between countries.
Yes,
but tribes.
You know, you talk about here the masculine consciousness giving the feminine love. How does that relate to within an individual, man or woman?
Well, the masculine pole is consciousness, and consciousness has three components: awareness, intelligence, and energy. That is the three constituent principles of consciousness. And so as you rise in consciousness, level of consciousness, you could see it as a musical note, like an octave. So as you rise to a higher octave, we call that the process of awakening, enlightening, right? You are kind of reaching higher levels of awareness. You're seeing more of life, of reality, right? Your awareness is expanding. Your intelligence is expanding. Now, when I talk about intelligence here, I'm talking about intelligence the way the universe perceives it. And so, you know, in our kind of Western society, we see intelligence as an IQ test. Like how well can you solve a math problem? The universe is completely disinterested in that whatsoever. It only views intelligence as one thing. Intelligence creates intelligent outcomes, and intelligent outcomes are defined as that which is conducive to life itself. Now, you can replace life with evolution. Now, thereby, unintelligence creates unintelligent outcomes, which is anything that's not conducive to life itself. So when you look at the world today and you look at war, violence, hate, inequality, injustices, none of it is conducive to life itself or evolution, because it's destructive, it's exploitative, it is, unthinkable in its savagery. It's not intelligent. So at lower levels of consciousness, we don't have access to the solutions that would be self-evident at a higher level of intelligence. And this is the higher octaves of consciousness. We're in a race to raise human consciousness, more so than solving climate change or solving hunger or solving wars or whatever. I mean, those are just effects of a cause, and the cause is low consciousness. And so we have to raise this human consciousness, and then the solutions become self-evident. Einstein called this, you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created it. Thinking is intelligence. Intelligence is consciousness. You cannot solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created it. It's very self-evident, right? If you want to solve anything in life, you have to rise to a higher level of awareness, understanding of intelligence to solve the problem that you created at a lower level. This is even in a personal vendetta with another person. You have to raise your level of thinking, and then there's a solution available. Now, energy is the life force, basically, that's animated, but, life force goes hand in hand with consciousness, and consciousness is basically love. Now, the feminine component, so that's the masculine. So the feminine is actually existence, and it's being, creativity, and reference. Those are the three constituent principles of feminine energy. And we're talking about feminine, masculine energy, which together make up source consciousness, unity, singularity, right? Now, we each have both within us. So we both have access to these energies, but women are predominantly, feminine dominant energy, and men are typically male dominant or masculine dominant energy. But, there's great variations in these things, and we can access both of these energies. We're all a complete version of God. I mean, we're not one of us is incomplete or lacking one component, right? But they are in different gradations, which is why we are different. And if you take the physiology of a woman, which is about 1,000 times more complicated than the physiology of a man, because it's a lot more complicated to create life, right, than to create a little dot of sperm. So we're like a really simple, basic factory, where she is like a really high-tech, complicated factory, right? A lot more going on in there. So, there are differences, physiology, right? Just biology, it's just a little bit different. But from a consciousness perspective, we have access to both of these. But we have, I believe, generally we have different roles to play and different things to contribute. And it's going to be different for every person, because their ratio of these energies is going to be unique to them and unique to their life mission. And this has nothing to do with your sexual preferences or whatever, because it just has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's above all that stuff. Like, you can sleep with whoever you want. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Like, there's nobody upstairs saying you can't do that. Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like, it's irrelevant. It's your personal business. Do whatever you want, whatever turns you on.
Great, thank you. I'm interested now, if we can take it to the practical side, Robert. So,
Sure.
you've given us a beautiful insight into the sort of the mental, emotional, the awareness. Now, how do we bring that back to planet Earth, to everyday life? What do we need to do to work through this alchemical process?
Yeah, so, I could talk 2 hours about that, but the first thing to realize is the game we're in. Like most people, I call this finite games versus the infinite game. And so finite games is worldly stuff. The game man plays, right? It's accumulating stuff. It's paying, and I'm not dismissing that it's important to pay your bills and it's good to have money so you can buy groceries and put fuel in your car and all that. I mean, I'm not dismissing any of that. But when you're just playing finite games, being busy, winning trophies, so to speak, right? You're basically lead. You're dead. You're just like a machine that's just, running on a pattern that's been installed since childhood. And most of life is really just kind of passing you by. I mean, you're just going through the motions. If you want to say it, and I don't mean this in a derogative way, but you're kind of like filler around here. You're kind of like, from a spiritual perspective, you're not adding that much to the mix. But that's fine because, that's the experience you're going through in this lifetime, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no hierarchy in it. It's just like you're just going through the motions. Where the game starts being more interesting is when you realize, when you have this epiphany, this awakening, that we're actually here in an infinite game. Now, this infinite game, the whole purpose of the infinite game is to keep playing and to keep growing and to keep evolving. And it goes on for thousands of lives. And all these beautiful people that are saying this is their last life and, I'm done, I'm complete, I'm so fucking great. Yeah, sleep on. You've got thousands of lives to go. You have thousands behind you. You got plenty more lives to go. Don't even worry about your next life. Just worry about your spiritual art right here, right? Let's just stay right here. And this infinite game has different rules. Because here the rules are, right, to play and evolve and to learn and to grow. Now, there's a rule in life that to truly play, you have to be free. If you must play, you cannot play. Now, if you are stuck in finite games and you have to do all these things, you have to accumulate all these things, you must play. So you cannot play life. Life is playing you. And so in the infinite game, we get freedom. Because when we realize that there's really just this infinite game to play, now we can play freely in the finite games. And now everything we do, including doing the dishes, changes the way we do it. And it doesn't actually matter what you do, because you can do everything beautifully. You can do the dishes beautifully. You can wash your car beautifully. You can be homeless beautifully. In fact, if that's the journey you're choosing, right? That's the finite game you're choosing to be a bum. That's okay. It's just an experience. Maybe that's what you wanted this lifetime. If you want to go be a big mogul, you can play that freely too. And the beautiful thing is when you play finite games from this level of freedom, you are no longer attached to the outcomes, because you understand actually the game you're playing is doing spiritual art. So you're not so caught up in these games like, am I going to have enough followers? Am I going to have enough money? Am I going to be one of the 100 richest people in my neighborhood? Am I going to be like, are everybody going to think I'm important? Do I have enough status? Am I beautiful enough? Am I what? No, because you're now playing freely. Because the real game you're playing is, okay, how beautiful is my spiritual art? How beautiful of a person am I today? And that is 100% under your control. And every morning you have a blank canvas. You don't have to hang on to anything that happened yesterday, the day before, or 2 years ago, or 20 years ago. You don't even have to hang on to the trauma of your childhood. Because today you could just be beautiful spiritual art to the best of your ability. The best that your resources allow you to be. And that's all you have to do today. And tomorrow you get another blank canvas and you do it again. And you start living the golden rule truly. Do unto others the way you wish to be done unto you. Like, this game is not that hard to play. The rules are not that hard.
Does it boil down to finding peace within ourselves, and then whatever is happening in our external world, we can find peace in that by not, as you said, being attached to outcome or needing external validation, or, you know, being seeing our peace as coming from the external world, so we can play these games because we are peace.
I totally get your question, but I kind of want to steer you away from finding.
Okay.
Away from searching.
Yeah.
Just be it.
Yeah.
You don't have to find peace. It's in you already. You don't have to find joy. It's in you already. It's a channel you tune into. It's not something to find. You are not going to find God anywhere except inside of you. It's a frequency. It's an attunement. It's an energy. I don't know how else to describe it, because I'm using words to describe which is beyond description in words. But when you hit it, you'll know it. And then to stay as much and as close to that, that will guide you. And then everything else in the outside world is really just experiences. And you can create experiences you want. Beautiful love relationships. You can have beautiful children, and, you know, do a business that you love, or do a healing practice, or go to school and study something, or, you know, or help out in the community, or whatever it is that you want to do. But that all by itself has no real significance other than just putting your spiritual art into creation. Your most beautiful version into creation. All right. And it doesn't really matter what it is that you do. It really doesn't. It makes no difference.
We're all a unique piece, right?
Where this mosaic of humanity is only complete when everyone is just their own puzzle piece. You are not here to be someone else's puzzle piece, or to be a puzzle piece that the world wants you to be, or your father, your mother, your husband, your wife, your whoever. No, you're here to be you. There's nobody that can do you like you. I have no competition in this world. Zero. There's nobody that can do Robert like me. Like, I swear to God. And not because I'm so special, but just nobody can do it exactly like me. And there's nobody that can do Gemma just like you can. But what we so often do, which is this inauthenticity, we think we have to be someone else to be loved and liked and accepted. But we don't. We really just have to get back to, who am I? What am I to do here, right? And then people say, well, you know, but what if it's a bad person? I said, no, because if you really get connected to that piece of you, that kind of like that little piece of gold inside of you, that's your connection with then, you know, you cannot play any bad notes anymore. It doesn't mean that you will never produce any bad music. I mean, you know, you'll still once in a while, you know, hit a chord wrong, but you're not gonna like put out bad music consistently all the time. You can't. It just won't be in you anymore. Because you just wouldn't want to hurt anybody else. You wouldn't want to harm somebody else. You wouldn't be able to live with yourself. Now, will it still occasionally happen? Will you still occasionally say a word that lands wrong or whatever? Will you sometimes have an unaware moment? Yeah, of course. We're all flawed. We're not perfect. We screw up, you know. We sometimes are a little inconsiderate. We get a little carried away with ourselves. But you will, when confronted with it, you will want to make it right and not be right. You will want to restore harmony. Because this universe is not a universe of balance. It's a universe of harmony. Balance is a fixed point. And so there's no balance in this universe. because nothing is ever fixed. Everything is always moving. Nothing is. Everything is always evolving. Heraclitus and the Stoics, right? Like nothing ever stands still in this universe. Now, harmony is more like a force field that kind of like flows and gels and moves back and forth. And this is really what life is all about, because it's really dynamic. Now, there's boundaries that we can knock out of harmony, and then we have to bring it back in. So within a relationship also, you know, you can have quite a bit of a dance going on. Everybody that's been in a long-term love relationship knows this. It's kind of a harmonic field. But then when something happens that kind of knocks it outside, you know, because the energy is disturbed. And it needs to be brought back into harmony. And this is everything in life. Your health, your body, right? Your body can absorb a lot of abuse. But at some point, you knock it out of harmony so far, you get ill and sick, and you know, now you have to really take care of something. So your body operates like this. Nature operates like this. There's a violent storm that can go through nature and ravage a whole coastline, but it will grow back, right? So the harmony is restored, but then, you know, the harmony is disrupted, but then it will be restored. You have this in business, you have this in politics, you have this in everything.
Robert, how do people find their uniqueness, their unique piece of the puzzle, if they're still seeking to, you know, be like somebody else and thinking that's where they're going to find their creative power? How do we find this uniqueness?
Well, it's a little bit hard to do if you're still caught up, like playing a role that someone else wrote for you, because that's not your role. And so you're always going to have kind of this longing, or you numb yourself in various ways. That you can numb yourself with opulence, with debauchery, with gluttony, with drugs, with alcohol, with porn and gambling and buying and consumerism. You know, you can numb yourself in 100 million ways. So all those things are there. But if you really allow yourself to be with it and see that you're not in harmony with where you really want to be, there's some feeling inside of you that feels like off, even though you cannot maybe define it, then now you have an opening to start like really looking into that. And this is the journey where you go within, because you've been allowing yourself to be guided by whatever came from the outside, whatever story came from the outside, whatever story society told you, your upbringing, your church, your society, your husband, your wife, your family, whoever told you the story, whichever one you're following, right? And so once you go inside, now you have to kind of examine these things, really. Say, why am I doing these things? Do I really love this job? Do I really, am I really happy exchanging my time doing something I maybe don't enjoy just because I get a paycheck? Well, the paycheck makes me feel safe. Okay, so is there other ways to feel safe? Are there other ways to create a paycheck in doing what I love? Well, I'm not thinking it's possible, because this is not what someone does. You don't go from a lawyer to become a painter or whatever, you know? So, you know, you really have to kind of go into it and start peeling and these entanglements apart, because the only thing that's stopping you is your beliefs that you can't do it. There's nothing else stopping you, because there's nothing inside of you that you truly desire at a heart level that you are not destined to be able to do. We all have the unique talents and superpowers and gifts we need to realize our greatest dreams and desires, if they're truthful from the heart, not the mind. So a desire that, you know, the world wants me to be a millionaire, so now I want to be a millionaire because that makes me important in the world. That's not a heart desire. You might not have the gifts and talents and superpowers for that. But if there's something within you that wants to be expressed through you, because remember, I mean, we're all just a individuated part of the absolute, that which created everything. So what makes you think it couldn't create your little dream? That's nothing compared to universes or galaxies or planets or, I mean, like, that's like, it's infinitely possible.
Robert, do you remember throughout your journey, and I'm just thinking, relating it to my own, whereas I had a couple of years of solid daily meditation and all this came through. But if you break that down, it's more just stillness and silence. Now, whether one's doing that in meditation or through walking through the forest or swimming in the ocean, how important is that stillness, silence, connecting to the inner voice?
Yeah, I think it's really, yeah, and I'm glad you say that, because so many people are so religious about meditation, and meditation is a beautiful tool, but it's just one access point, right? It can be in, I like to create art and I like to write, and that really connects me, because that's an expression. But I love to be outside. I love to play sports. I mean, I like to move my body, but when I do yoga, I can connect with that point. So here's the thing. The heart, which is a center of intelligence, it has billions of neurons in it, right? It's literally a center of intelligence. If you don't believe me, go to the Heart Math Institute. They've done 20, 30 years of clinical research on this. I mean, this is a center of intelligence, which actually there's more data going from the heart to the mind than from the mind to the heart, which tells you who's actually the true master, right? Now, here's the tricky part. The heart has its own language, because the heart's feminine. Our mind is masculine. Our mind is loud and boisterous. Our heart whispers. And so the stillness you're talking about is so you can hear the whispers. Now, the language of the heart is feeling, sensing, intuiting, and direct knowing. It's the feminine language. Women are typically more connected with this naturally, because women are more naturally in their body. And this is purely a physical thing, because from the time she's a menstruating girl, she has to be in tune with her cycles. So a woman has to be in tune with her body, because she's just, nature is forcing her to be in her body much more than a man typically is. Men are very disconnected from our body, disconnected from our heart, generally. Now, a lot of women in the West are also very disconnected from their heart, because they grow up in the same school system and the same upbringing and the same kind of militant, and so, many women find themselves well. But generally speaking, it's a lot easier for women to learn that language, or reclaim that language is a better way to, nobody's ever lost it, right? As a little baby, you're born fully fluent in this language. But then you kind of, it's as Buckminster Fuller said, we're all born a genius, and then we spend most of our life reclaiming our genius, after we're done with all our upbringing. And so, but it's a whispering of the heart, feeling, sensing, intuiting, direct knowing. That's the language of the heart. And so we have to quieten the mind through meditation, through being in nature, for doing something we enjoy. I have great success with solfeggio frequencies. I just put frequency music on, works wonders for me. I know other people that drives them mad. So you have to find what works for you. But these whispers are always there for everybody. Some people are more connected with it, but we are all gifted psychics. Our heart wiring is amazing. I mean, it is it's just a marvel of ingenuity, and our capabilities are just phenomenal. And I know you're tuned into it, and it's hard for people that haven't had those experiences to relate to this. But once you kind of really open yourself up, you're like, oh my God, we are so, as humanity, we are so underutilizing all this intelligence that's within us that we have access to. And we're wired to access it. And we're wired to actually know each other and to just energetically communicate, telepathically communicate. We do so little of it.
This is fascinating. And, you know, as you're talking, of course, I'm relating it to my own journey and the feeling that I have. And I'm interested to expand on what you said before about people numbing this, because the subject of marijuana comes up. Now, I've never been into it, but I know a lot of the spiritual truther community is. And they from what I understand, and I understand everyone's different, but they say it is a gateway to spirituality. Now, I'm confused when I'm thinking of that, and you're talking about this pure connection that is unnumbed. What are your thoughts around marijuana?
I'm gonna get myself in hot water here. I think all the plant medicines have a place and a time, but I think many people are using it as a crutch, and so I think it's being abused quite a bit, and I think it's just escapism with a spiritual wrapped around it. You know, our body, our physiology, the more we can detoxify our body, because we're very, you know, our environment in general, right? We're all exposed to EMF, we're all exposed to 5G now, through our food, you know, all the additives in all our foods, even if we eat relatively clean, organic, and, you know, there's still a lot of residue of all this stuff. You know, there's a lot of metals we use, a lot of, you know, even just mundane cleaning products, you know, have a lot of different stuff. So like, it's a daily task to detoxify. And this is a very finely tuned instrument. And, you know, it performs optimally in a completely detoxified, open, as an open channel. That's just my personal experience. And I'll tell you, you know, I've smoked in my life. I actually recently gave up vaping for this reason. It was a leftover from, you know, I had smoked in the past, and I kind of, like, you know, got reintroduced to it, and I just picked it up in an ayahuasca ceremony, actually, because I had some Peruvian tobacco, which helps you purge. And then, you know, it kind of reintroduced, and I had this little vape thing. And then, so I gave that up. You know, alcohol is the same thing. Sure, caffeine, but I still drink a cup of coffee a day. So, you know, I'm not a monk. I drink a glass of wine occasionally, you know, but it's very little. I switched to non-alcoholic beers a long time ago because they're just as good, and, you know, I really don't need the alcohol. But it's not that I've never. I mean, I'm from goddamn Amsterdam. I came rolling out of the, you know, out of the womb rolling a joint. I mean, like, I grew up with that stuff. I don't. I mean, listen, everybody's got to do what they want to do. But and you know, and I use you know, sometimes I use mushroom as an access point, and, you know, there's these places and times where I think you can use these things in sacred ways. But when it becomes just something to lean on to open you up, then I think, like, what's behind the smoke screen?
Is it a matter of, if it's something that you're using daily, that would be something to
You know,
explore? But as you said, if it's just some every now and then, you know, it's
yeah, I don't. And listen, I don't judge any of it. I mean, if someone is in a beautiful place and they use it 3 times a day and they're stoned out of their gourd all day long, but they're in a beautiful place and creating beautiful spiritual art, and, you know, their life is thriving and they're doing great, what am I to say that that's not, you know, do you. When I work with people, one of the first things I usually do is tell them, you know, I get them off all this stuff because I want to see what's behind it. And there's always something behind it. I have yet to find a client that have one of these things and there's not something behind it. And whenever people challenge me on that, I say, well, go without it for a month or two. And you will damn fucking know what's behind it, because it will come up. It will be in your face. And so when you get all twitchy and just your thought of giving it up, if that unsettles you in any way, you have a dependency. And we just have to get real about that, right? I mean, we can bullshit all day long, but that's a dependency, period. Now, there are dependencies that are functional. If you choose it to be functional, you go do you. But I can tell you that in the breath is prana, which is life force energy. And you got all these little bristles in your lungs. You got all these capillaries in your lungs. And anything that toxifies the lungs, chokes up this exchange point, is less prana, less life force energy. Energy is information. Energy is light. Energy is love, because the fabric of this universe is love. All that, there's less of that going in.
Yeah, beautifully.
Lungs are big. Lungs are very big. Ask Wim Hof if he smokes weed every night. I can promise you he doesn't. Now, he might occasionally have a joint. I don't know him personally. But I can promise you Wim Hof is not smoking weed every day, because he knows how important it is, the breath, how connected that is to higher levels of consciousness.
Thank you. Yeah. That was my sort of awareness as well, and just one I think is important to discuss, because I do feel it is neglected somewhat in the truth of spiritual awareness, consciousness, community, and one that maybe needs to be touched on a little bit more for those that are seeking that genuine, authentic piece of the puzzle that they are and maybe haven't.
Yeah, and I would say I would throw rape or hape, whatever one you call it, which is spiritual cocaine. And I say that because I used it. I was dating years ago. I dated a medicine woman that introduced me to it. And, me with my tobacco history, like in my 20s and 30s, I mean, I was on the rape kick big time. And yeah, it does something to you. But rape is a very sacred it's a tobacco-based medicinal thing. You know what it is, right?
I've heard of
your
it.
nose. Yeah. It's this little Amazonian powder. It's mixed up tobacco leaves with some herbs, and you basically inhale it into your nose and both of your nostrils, and you have kind of a quick high, but it has tobacco and nicotine in it. And it could be an opener during an ayahuasca ceremony or any kind of plant ceremony. It's used medicinally in that's where it comes from, right? It comes from the shaman world. And it's a beautiful, very potent ceremonial medicine, and it can be used that way. But if you start using it daily and have your little curape with you, and you're snorting hape every day, that's not really the purpose of hape. And so, you can at some point, right, when it's right for you, the right timing for you, it's always interesting to take something away for a month and just see what happens. You don't have to give it up for life. Just see what happens. See what happens if you stop. If you're smoking every day weed, and now the weed that we're selling these days, right, it's like we're talking about variations 10, 20, 50 times more potent than what was kind of found naturally 60, 70 years ago. Like the stuff Bob Marley was smoking, like that's not the stuff you're smoking. You're smoking like something 20, 30, the strains that they've cultivated, right? And they're very, very potent. And so, if you take that away for a month, or you're smoking that every day, it's an interesting exercise. Take it away for a month. See what happens. See what comes up for you. And I'm sure there will be some stuff that comes up. And if the thought alone of taking away makes you cringe, you 100% have a dependency, no different than an alcoholic, a cigarette smoker, a sugar addict. I mean, it's all the same, right?
And again, it's no judgment, but just for those who are seeking this alchemical path and to find their unique piece of the puzzle, these are all things that maybe hinder along the way. So it's just creating that pure channel that's unfiltered, that connection to divinity, not through, as you said, a smoke screen. That beautiful analogy. Robert, you did speak earlier of when you spoke of the alchemical journey turning lead into gold, and you said you'd speak later on about what the gold actually is. Well, seeing we'll be starting to wrap up now, let's find out what is the gold.
So yeah, this goes really, really far back. It's really well known in ancient Egypt, in the ancient Greek philosopher circles, which all actually trained in the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. Pythagoras, Plato, Aristotle, they all went through those same mystery schools. Those mystery schools were later continued, and there's a lot of Gnosticism, the Kabbalah, that branch of Judaism, the mystical branch, Hermetic, philosophy systems. They're all kind of the same branch. And then it kind of went into the Knights Templar, the Inner Circle, which is the same thing that eventually emerged in Freemasonry, in the Inner Circle of Freemasonry. And so a lot of stuff is still alive. And we're really talking about this is a process of preparation for resurrection. And these are very ancient principles. I'm not a Freemason, by the way. So just to make that clear, I'm not here to advertise or advocate any of this. You don't have to be a Freemason for any of this. You can find this in other ways. And so all these philosophies had this notion that the person that's unawakened is akin to lead. They're really dead man walking. They're just, they're running on a subconscious computer program, which is fear-based. And then, once some powerful people found out how to keep them in that fear base, I mean, that's largely what's happened, right? And that's what we're uncovering now, all this truther stuff. Now, this resurrection was really the alchemist alchemy of turning it into gold, was reconnecting with divinity, but a very unique aspect of divinity. Because not just divinity, not just the heart, but that which is often called Christ consciousness. But if you don't want to call it Christ consciousness, you can call it anything else. The order of Melchizedek is the very same. There's many different names for it. Now, what this process of resurrection is, and this is why so many, why it's so mystical, it's a reunification of the masculine and the feminine within. It's coming back to be the whole. Now, this is the very similar process. They call them bodhisattvas in India. And these are people that are here on this earthly plane to, in this lifetime, reunite their fractured masculine and feminine aspect, right? Source consciousness, reintegration. And from that place of evolution, contribute while they're still around here. And that's the process of resurrection, turning lead into gold. Now, there's many symbolism. So you think about the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is gold, and it came on a silver platter. And the silver platter actually was called a salve. And salve is where the word salvation comes from. Now, the silver platter, the salve, represented the feminine. And the Holy Grail, which was gold, represented the masculine. And the feminine actually is that which brings salvation to the masculine. She is the portal to divinity in this beautiful reality here. And she, in the human form, is obviously beautiful females. She being Mother Earth, she being anything of creation, any business, anything you create is feminine by definition, because she's the creatrix. And so salvation, turning lead into gold, must go through the feminine, and a reintegration of the masculine with the feminine. She needs to be honored and revered, because she's the spirit. She is the divinity, because all of creation is divinity. Now, when we look at the world today, we look at a world that's lost in masculinity, where nothing is sacred, nothing is revered, and everything is abused, exploited, and extracted. This is when the masculine is not integrated.
So good. Thank you, Robert. And I know you've got a book coming out next year. What is this?
Yeah.
Is this all going to be in your new book?
Yeah. I had literally a download on a channel for about 2.5 months. It's a book. I can't share the title yet, but the subtitle is The Ethos of Being Spiritual Art. And this is a spiritual teaching framework that's anchored in sacred geometry. So I really delve into the fabric of reality, sacred geometry, and how all that's related, masculine, feminine. And it's a beautiful framework around the flower of life. We go into Taurus Yantra, we go into the Platonic solids, we go through everything. And then the final chapter, it's 5 parts, and the final chapter is really how to become a spiritual poet. So how do we bring all of this into creation as an expression of ourselves? How do we become spiritual art and start playing in this infinite game rather than being lost in finite games? So it's a beautiful book. I love it anyway, and I'm pouring my heart and soul into it. I'm going through the editing right now. The cover was just done. It's a beautiful process. It was a big gift for me to have it come through me. And it was a really beautiful experience. It prompted me actually to become a certified medium. So over the summer, I went to Delva University in Georgia and took a certification course in that. I wanted to deepen that capability as well. And then I'll bring that out, and I'll see what where we take that. I think there's a lot of workshops, retreats, and lesson content. I'm working on some of those things already that I think we can bring out, and that'd be so much fun to talk about. But it would be very practical and I've had some people proofread it, and it's going to be very grounded in words that I think people can understand. It's not woolly. It's about actually living life here on the earthly plane in a beautiful way.
Oh, so good. I can't wait to read it. And so needed this time. This is the pivotal point of humanity, I think, where this is really coming into the awareness of the masses, the internal truth. So, wow, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much, Robert.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And just to let people know where they can find you, please. And we'll below.
Yeah, so I have this crazy last name, Althuis, but it's on the web, it's robertalthuis.com. So it's all spelled together, Althuis. I have my first book is on Amazon, various other Barnes and Noble, I think. It's Never Enoughitis. You can also do neverenoughitis.com, and then through my website you can get there. There's a free, if you want to sign up, there's a free like 45-50 page book called The Hero's Journey, which is about awakening. So if anybody wants to receive that, you're more than welcome to sign up, and then I'll keep you posted as well. And I'm on Facebook, on Instagram at Robert Althuis. So those are all the places. LinkedIn, you can find me there too. all the usual spots, or you can just reach out to Gemma, and I'm sure she'll point you in the right direction.
Of course, yeah, and also direct people to Heart Warrior number 7, where you've got also your own journey that we spoke about at length.
Beautiful.
And you can get to see a bit more of Robert during that. Wow, thank you so much. Is there anything else that needs to be said in this conversation, Robert?
I would like to leave everybody with this notion that whatever you took from this conversation, whatever you didn't take, you are a piece of art. And the sooner you can recognize that you are so unique and so beautiful and so exquisite, and there's someone, whatever name you want to call it, right, that all it desires, all it craves, is that you bring that into creation that wants to come out of you. So all you have to do is go find that which you really desire, that you really want to do, want to live. And there's a force, an indescribable force, that wants to come to your aid to bring it into creation. And so it's just, there's a magnificent intelligence that wants to come to your rescue, that wants to help you. So all you have to do is bring it out and just follow that thread, right? And then I want to thank you for putting all this together. I think all the other men that I've listened to, they're all spectacular in their own right, and it's an honor to be among them. And I think you are doing this with such beautiful grace and enthusiasm, and putting so much heart and soul into it. And I know when we do these things, that there's always some venomous arrows that get shot at us, because whenever we stick our neck out, there's always someone that wants to take issue with that. And all I want to tell you is that, tell them to go shoot the fucking arrows at me and not you. I'll take them for you, because I think you're doing beautiful work, and I want you to just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you, Robert. I love and appreciate you and what you're doing in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thanks for being here, everyone. I'll drop all Robert's links below, and if you could share, subscribe, and I'll be back in tomorrow actually with another Man Speak. Thank you. Bye-bye.